We're talking e-scouting for out-of-state trips. Cameron talked with Johnny, Stewart, and Beau Martonik about how to plan for an out-of-state trip and get out there and have higher levels of success. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Here we go.
When you're planning for a new state or a state that you've only hunted a few times that you can't put boots on the ground all the time, like you don't have access to it all the time, what's the number one first thing that you do when you're planning to go to a state like that?
Well, I'm going to try to figure out where I want to go. And to me, that comes down to what my goals are. Every state is different for me on what my goals are. Like a couple years ago, I went to New York for the first time and hunted. And my goal was to shoot a buck. I didn't care what kind of buck it was, anything. So I was going to go and find deer. Now, in West Virginia, I'm trying to kill a really big deer. And that takes a little bit of a different approach to it. So I try to identify the goals first. I think that's important for people of understanding where you're going to go. And even like picking a state, for example, like if you want to hunt 170 or have a chance at 170-inch deer, can you get that done in Pennsylvania? Yeah, you can. But is that likely? Probably not. So
Sure.
like you might want to focus on the Iowas, the Kansases, and those states that require a little bit more planning, draws, and all these different things that come to it. But now say, for example, I have a state plan like West Virginia. And what I would do to go into that is I'm going to try to find areas that, first of all, that have vegetation diversity. So I start with e-scouting on everything. And I want to find areas that are away from major cities. That's a big thing. Away from major population centers that people can't go hunt after work for the most part. And also sometimes even a little bit long, unless you're crazy like Johnny, like that wouldn't even drive on a weekend.
Sure.
To try to make it a little bit more remote, a little bit further away, a little bit difficult to get to. But then I look at vegetation diversity. I want to find places that have, for a lack of better terms, you look at a map and there's a bunch of different colors, to simplify it. Rather than saying I'm looking for oaks and I'm looking for this, I want to see different colors mixed in different areas and ridges, because to me that means there's going to be more food. Because say there's not a mass crop, you have a place that's all just big oak ridges, that's going to change everything. Versus a year that does have mass crops. So I want to find that, and then I look at the terrain and find stuff that's like, okay, a little bit more difficult for other people to access, but I also think terrain lets me understand how the deer are going to move better than areas that are kind of flatter and moving there. So I'll start dropping points on places that are, key vegetation features, whether I find timber cuts, strip jobs, anything like that. And then I start going into like hemlocks, things that you can see on the map. And then I go into the terrain features, like, your traditional, your saddles, your points, your benches, the tops of draws. And then I just look and see where they're starting to find these patterns of where I have a bunch of points close together. Now I'm going to start really diving in and finding the smaller features within those. So you find your little micro points, because I found that it's no secret that bucks bet on points, in the mountains for the most part.
Sure.
But I think the deer are onto that too when people are in there. Same thing with saddles. So trying to find the micro ones. So you might be on the side of a mountain coming out and there's just a little tiny feature. And that's why I like using changing the topography down to 10-foot contour intervals.
Okay.
Because you can see micro terrain differences. So like I'll go in Spartan Forge, click on 10-foot versus 25-foot or 30-foot, and be able to narrow that down and find those little areas and to be able to go in and move on. So I'll start finding those spots, and not to go so deep into my e-scouting regimen, but that gets me a place to go into. And if I had 5 days to hunt, I might spend 2 days just walking around, checking those areas. If I wasn't able to get boots on the ground first, hitting those spots, seeing where they're at, different elevation levels, and going into it. But before even going in there, my big thing is where I feel like that I'm really detailed in it. I'm not always the best with it. So when you said that you think I have my shit together, it's not always that way. But I put together a hunt plan. So I do that e-scouting plan for 3 to 5 different areas in a bigger area.
Sure.
And have it plans like I'll have areas that are like more like higher elevation, some tops of ridges, and then some bottom areas it gets hot and deer down lower, or the mass is different. I have these spots, and then within that I have the spots within the spots, and I have them all listed on I just use Google Docs.
Mm-hmm.
And I have that listed out, and then I have notes onto it why I thought this spot was good. What's the access look like? Where can I come in from? Marking all those parking spots, and then So when I go down there and you go through spot A, it's not good. A lot of hunting pressure. Spot B, there's no food and it's just really difficult to find deer. You don't just get frustrated and be like, you're trying to go out and find cell service to look at maps again. I have a plan that I can strategically follow, and I'm pretty confident in one of these 5 spots that I'm going to find deer.
Yeah.
It's just, I got to work the plan. I got to work through it. And because for me, I get anxiety pretty easily as far as going into spots or if things aren't working out. And especially in an area I don't have confidence in that I've never been to before. But working a plan helps me do that.
Johnny, I feel like
that's a lot. He gave a lot of good information.
Yeah.
Like that's like my brain gets scrambled because you can go so many avenues. Like he put it all out there. I'm like, wow, I'm still kind of trying to swallow that. I'm like, trying to take notes, but
I feel like your approach to a hunt like that is probably a lot different.
so now that I'm older and I guess maybe that's it. And you hear all this info that you can go kind of rabbit holes, and I just in my brain I'm thinking all kind of situations and terrain and vegetation and scrapes and all this, and I'm just getting confused. But I think the older I am, and me and Beau even talked recently on a podcast, is like and I asked myself, what am I looking for when I'm hunting these bigger, larger chunks of land for mature deer, and like how can I make it simple? What am I looking for at my age that I've went down all these rabbit holes? Is just kind of like I kind of been looking for what I call safe zones where these mature deer feel safe. And there's a safe zone out there that they live in, and you need to be on the fringe of that. And I'd like to hunt in around hunting pressure myself. It's whether it's usually in around a rut. Like I know where these bucks in my area aren't, and that's something I learned from his dad. You put all the cameras out looking for these deer, and you at least learn something from that. I know where they're not, but so yeah. And first off, I'll look, like he said, the variety of terrain or habitat, and like my analogy to that I've been like asking myself is like, if you take a picture of someone holding a buck, like or whatever, you just take a photo, a photographer, you don't just have the subject right in the middle smack dab. To me, it's not like when I look at a picture that's like that, it's just like I want to see the next picture, but when you got a lot going on in a picture, like I'm attracted to it. My brain's like eating it all up, looking at the different thing that's going on. So when you're doing your e-scouting, I kind of want to find that where a lot's happening.
Okay.
That's my starting point, where there's a lot of terrain, different crow's foot ridges, a lot happening terrain-wise, or you can couple that with vegetation cuts, open areas, just a lot happening that your eyes attract to, not like a stale piece of timber that goes on for miles. You want to find something, and then that's my starting point. And now there's a lot of good hunters, e-scouters out there. The knowledge is there that everybody's starting there. So then now I want to look for these safe areas. I've seen bucks walk a mile to these areas where maybe you think the attractive area is for you, that are also attractive to the most of the deer population. But when a mature deer get in there and all the good hunters in there, the hunter's going to leave scent, and it's just like light bulbs go off. So I just start thinking, where is he safe? Because he wants to walk around during the day. You get into October when the deer are fattening up for the winter, for the rut. So they're feeding. I guarantee somewhere during the day, a buck's feeding through the second week of October. They call it a law, but maybe he just found a safe area that he can feed and water. Everything's right there. But you need to find these areas that these deer feel safe in, but start at that attractive area and work out. It might be an area where there isn't much sign, but is it a safe, like it's a place that this mature deer knows that he's not bothered 90% of the time, and it's just spending time out there and walking, putting the boots on the ground, and just asking yourself, where would I go if I needed to get away from all the heat, and it's that works for me. You know what I mean? Because like there is so much knowledge about ways to hunt, places to hunt, terrain, habitat. And so like, when I get into these mature deer in the bigger woods, I start now just looking for where's a safe area. You know what I mean? There might be multiple of them, and then I'm going to run cameras in these safe areas, and maybe I'll grab them at night and check them, but because I've hunted a lot of times. I've hunted trail sign scrapes. Not saying during a rut it happened. You know, it's just like every situation situational. But a lot of these mature deer, after they get 6 years old, they can tend to be nocturnal, not move a lot, but they're moving in that safe area.
Yeah.
So I just kind of work back, you know, and use the cameras to your knowledge to see if, you know, if you put 3 or 4 cameras out in one area that you think he's safe, maybe who knows where a valley back in the woods and no one goes to a north side slope or just not much sign. And but yeah, they'll go a long ways to get to these attractive areas and seek out the other deer. But so that's kind of how I've been trying to dumb it down for myself to help myself out. What do I want to look for, John? You know, with all the knowledge that is out there, I'm just like, what do you want to see? You know, and that's kind of how I've been seeing it recently. You know.